Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I think is the first EGX developer Q&A. I think that's right. Let's say it's the first one. It feels like more of an event that way. We're joined by Greg Pryjmachuk, I want to say. Is that right?
Pryjmachuk.
I'm from Stoke-on-Trent. I'm not very good with complicated surnames. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Jalopy. First of all, we're going to have a quick look at a brief video before going over to some Q&A between me and Greg, and then we're opening up to the audience. So please do think of some lovely questions, and we'll sort of end the session with that. And yeah, I guess, can we roll the video, please?
Die Deutsche Demokratische Republik ist stolz, den Leica 601 zu präsentieren. Viel Platz für Übergepäck. Wendig. Schnell. Ausdauernd und robust. Treuer Begleiter, mutiger Reisender. Der Leica 601.
There we are. Hello, Greg.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm very well, thank you.
Are you having a good show? You guys have got the game out in the res area, right?
Yeah, just near the entrance. Can everyone hear me all right as well in the back? I've been told...
I'm getting some nods. Yeah, we've got to project.
I've been told a lot.
Yeah, how's that going? Are people playing the game? Are they having a nice time with it?
Yeah. When people sit down on it, they tend to spend a lot of time on it. I guess that's the nature of the game. Mm-hmm. I was worried it's not the type of game that you can expo at a show. Yeah,
what's it like to demo, actually? Because I guess it's a relatively complicated start to Jalopy.
Yeah, so the tutorial probably, on average, takes people 15 to 20 minutes to work through. But I've not seen anyone just sort of like rage quit off the tutorial yet.
Do you stand there over their shoulder being like, oh, God?
I try to stay back as far as possible.
Okay.
It's like what we call developers, we call blind testing. So
sure.
If somebody gets stuck on something, you've
got to let it happen.
Yeah, you've got to let it. You've got to let them make the mistakes, so you know what to fix.
Absolutely. So I guess to kick off my questions, one of the things that stands out to me with Jalopy is following the success it's already had on early access, and also with games like Spin Tires before it, there seems to be this appetite for games about vehicles that aren't traditionally aspirational. You know, it's not a Ferrari, the Leica 601 Deluxe. What is it about these kind of vehicles and that style of gameplay that you think works?
With the Ferrari reference you use, those type of games like Gran Turismo's big selling point is
shiny cars.
Yeah,
shiny cars
and quantity.
Impressive trailers.
It's a lot like how many beautiful cars we've got in the game, but that comes at a cost as well. Like you can't put all the attention on one car. They have several tiers of cars, don't they? Like how much effort they put into one car. And I guess the allure of Jalopy is it's more ownership.
Sure.
Even if the ownership is of a crappy car.
Yeah.
Because it's like you've got your own engine compartments. You build the car, you fix the car, you repair the car, you end up loving the car. You've got it's really your little crappy car.
I think a lot of people bring up the relationship that you have when you buy your first car. Unless you're mega rich, you often start with something a little bit battered, a little bit of TLC is needed, and that's sort of the entire game, really, right? Making sure that this faithful companion of yours can kind of keep ticking along. Yeah,
you start loving your car for your first car, especially for its weird.
What was your first
quirks.
car, actually?
It was a Ford Mondeo. It was automatic, but it used to get stuck in second gear.
It was automatic. Oh man, the developer of Jalopy started off with an automatic car. That doesn't make any sense.
I got given it free off my neighbour.
That makes more sense. There we are.
Yeah. But it was the type of car that if there was a hill, the automatic would get stuck in second gear. Right. So I'd have to wait for all the traffic to clear and then build a run-up, get it into third and make sure I can go up the hill. I ended up scrapping that for about £75, which was the best deal I could have got for
Excellent. Yeah, did you always know when you started with Jalopy that that's the sort of feeling you wanted to get across? Like, was that the starting point? No,
the feeling sort of came for free. I'm more of like a mechanically minded person. I was more focused on systems. It comes from a lot from my past of where I've worked. I've worked on like Formula One games, and I took from that what I loved about that was the simulation aspects, the management, the ideas ticking in the back of your head. How much fuel have I got? how are my tyres going to cope, rather than I'm on lap 42, I'm in second place, I can catch him and win. I preferred the simulation aspect. So I just built the game while with that in my head. How would it play if I had all these components and systems in the game? And then the rest of that sort of came organically afterwards.
What was the car like when you started development? Like, what was the first sort of model?
Well, it was pretty much the Leica, which is based on the Trabant as it is now. But instead of having the engine components, which you can trade out for others and define the performance and the reliability of the car, it was just one single engine.
Right.
And the focus was more on the interior, about what you could do inside the car, rolling windows down, playing with the radio, steering, handbrake, just seeing how that works inside a first-person environment.
Did you sort of click that was the sort of thing that was making this game stand out?
Like,
Interaction.
I think 2 weeks into development, I put it on TIG Source, and Rock Paper Shotgun picked it up saying, "This is worth 5 minutes of your time." And
is that a quote? It's a shame it's not a boxed release, because there you are.
Yeah. Well, and I value my time more than I would how much to pay for it. So that was the first positive result of that, and I just carried on working on it now. And now we're going through early access and taking a lot of criticism back to try and improve it, see what kind of game it can evolve into.
Is that an interesting step? Because it sounds like when you first started, you put it out there and you're happy to get this response from RPS, like, okay, so this is what people think about it, and then you go from that to early access where it's all of that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because I work on the code and the art and the design of the game purely by myself, so there's a risk of getting too close to it, and what necessarily works in my head won't work in anybody else's head. So taking criticism, opening it up to early access and getting the feedback as much as I can, as early as I can, helps make a better game.
Was that immediate? Like, you put it out there and then
on TikTok there's a free version. It was just the car. There was no environment. It was blocked out grey space environment, but you could just interact with the car. It was just interesting to sort of explore.
Was with early access specifically, have there been any examples where like that feedback has just been exactly what you needed? Like you said you work on this as a solo project, you might get too close. Were there any other examples you put out there and people were like, oh, we're not sure about this bit, or like, we really like this thing that you hadn't really seen as a major factor?
There's been like some absolute spot-on suggestions. I didn't think sequential gear changes would work because I had it in my head that everything in the car had to be interacted with.
Sure.
But somebody suggested that I use the mouse wheel to scroll up and down the gears, and I was like, that keeps it in sort of space.
Sure.
And not even just like the mechanics of the game, help with marketing as well. Mm-hmm. Somebody branded the game Car PG.
That's it. Amazing.
It sort of fit perfectly, and I was struggling with stuff like that because I'm not a marketing person. So, like title changes and help with that was really good as well.
One of the things that I've noticed with early access is that you sort of have to, as a player, you have to pick your right time to jump into the game because. Obviously, Jalopy is still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're wary of, like showing a version that is too young, too early? Like it hasn't polished out all the sort of things that you need to.
Yeah, definitely. It's something I say on the Steam forums. I'm quite active on it. If somebody asks whether it's worth buying now, I'll always tell them it's done well enough for me now to keep working on it till finish. So don't worry about the support I need for that now.
Oh, you're such a humble indie game developer.
It's not that, but if they buy it, give me a bad review, then refund it. I'll get nothing from that, do I? So yeah, there is some selfishness to that. Trust me, yeah. But also the fact that it takes time, and I understand, like with a lot of early access as well. There's so much negative press with it right now. Stuff tends to be in early access perpetually, ongoing. Which is it's something that I like to bring the community in onto that, to put their foot down and say, look, you need to get this update out next, and then I'll just start cutting features, say, okay, get the update out next, move it on to the next step.
As a kind of a solo team, is that something you're concerned about yourself, like the idea that this game could be in early access for too long?
Yeah.
Do you have a sort of rough plan? I'm not after a release date, but like, do you know when Jalopy is sort of complete in your mind?
Well, we're shooting for next year, early next year, but as I say, it depends when it feels right.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was struggling with was the motivation of building it. I mean, motivation lasts like a day, doesn't it? 24 hours. Then you need something else to keep you working on it, which is, for me, accountability or discipline. So if you put yourself out there, you share as much as you can, people could come back and say, hold on, don't do that, that's a waste of time. And you can go, okay, yeah, probably right there.
Sure.
And that accountability also just helps so much with just getting the work done.
Can I ask my rubbish games journalist question?
Go on then.
Do you see any kind of comparison between what your players are doing, sort of looking after this vehicle that they constantly need to monitor? Sometimes it's not cooperative, and it's this ongoing process with the process of actually designing and developing an early access game.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to do it.
it's Jalopy is a game for a specific type of person. Somebody who's got mechanical sensibility. They like tinkering with stuff. They like to get involved and find out why this works, why that doesn't work, and that translates straight over into the feedback that I get with me. An example is we've got our own internal bug database. But some users have set up a separate one for me, and it's just as good as ours. Like, they've got all the details in there, repro steps, everything. So yeah, we've got a good community that the type of player that plays it really helps out with the early access.
Awesome. Something else that sort of jumps out with Jalopy is that it is a game that you're sort of thrown into the deep end a little bit with. Like, the first thing you do in that game is sort of rebuild a car in the dark. And at least then you've actually got all the parts available to you in the scrapyard, which isn't always the case later on. Is there a fine line to walk between making the player feel like they need to do some work to keep this vehicle ongoing and... Oh, that was interesting, wasn't it? And I don't know what...
Is that me?
I don't think so.
There
And is there a fine line between making work for the player and it not feeling fun, basically? Is that something you have to consider?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the biggest problem with Jalopy is that you always want to add more. You always want to make it more complicated. Simulate stuff like spark plugs and that. It's just,
oh god, right,
but
okay.
it's just too much though, because the example on the show floor is everyone who goes through that tutorial, and a 15-minute tutorial to 20-minute tutorial, that's long enough. They go through it, and some people that don't own a car don't necessarily care about how a car works.
Right.
They'll really struggle with the way it works. And I think a lot of the joy of Jalopy and a lot of the allure of it is for people who can't drive or don't have cars, because it is simulating their own little dinky car.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had to draw the line anywhere yet that's like, okay, you said spark plugs, but is there anything like, you know what, it's probably a bit too much,
yeah,
a bit too real?
The car's based on a Trabant, so like one of the things you have to do with the Trabant is pull the fuel, the choke to allow the fuel in to start the car.
Right.
Stuff like, I mean, unless you've owned a scooter like 20 years ago,
not immediately obvious.
I don't think you're going to understand what the purpose of a choke is. That being said, though, there's ways around this. You can always add different tiers of difficulty. In a traditional game, difficulty would be like how much HP the AI has, how much ammo you've got. Because Jalopy's a bit eccentric and weird, I guess it'd just be more stuff to worry about.
Sure.
More stuff that can go wrong.
But it does at times you have to have that element of it feeling like work. Not all the time, but occasionally you have to sort of curse the car and like, oh god, I can't believe I've got to do this. So that is an important element of the game.
I think we're being hacked.
I think we might be.
Anonymous. Yeah, so a lot of the joy for some people comes from stuff that I'm trying to fix to make it as more streamlined as possible.
Right.
For instance, people end up putting their wallet in the boot and forgetting about it. Like, oh, I've lost my wallet, where's that? And if I'm not there and I can't tell them, oh, I saw you put your wallet in the boot, they'd be frustrated. But when I tell them, they're like, oh, isn't that a funny interaction? Isn't that so funny? Oh, that's so charming. I was like, yeah.
So as the designer, is part of you thinking, you know what, maybe I should have like the uncle say, your wallet's in the boot.
Yeah,
I think we might be switching microphones. Is it me? Was it me? Oh no, sorry. Is this on? Hello. Okay, I realized I had a problem. You didn't have to cut me off entirely. There we are. So like, as the designer, are you thinking partly like I should tell the player that their wallet's in the boot, or on the other hand, you sort of actually, when you eventually find it, that's part of the joy.
Well, you want to avoid telling players because it becomes like hand-holding, doesn't it? It's just frustrating and annoying then. Like, nobody wants to feel like told something and then like, oh, I could have figured that out.
Yeah.
It's the classic like show, don't tell. Ideally, you want enough of the interactions to be that similar that everything sort of makes sense mechanically as it would in real life anyway. So like, almost like Lego is you want to aim for is you drop stuff in, connect it to Lego. I could quite easily have like nuts and bolts for the components.
Sure.
That's another level of obtrusion, like saying, oh, how does this system work? How do I figure that out? And I'm not entirely sure that it's rewarding enough or works enough. I'm not sure.
It sounds like part of your job making Jalopy is like managing player frustration a little bit. It's like, eventually you're going to really like this. You might be a bit mad right now. You might not be able to find your wallet, but trust me, the payoff is going to be good.
It's a huge part of game development. I mean, this is why you see so many games that are so similar in execution. I mean, it's the same reasons that say Ubisoft focus so much on doing the Assassin's Creed, because they've established these systems, people understand how they work, and now they can tell different stories or show different landscapes through this suggestion. I mean, you get a book, you know how to read it.
Sure.
You get a game, you've got a certain period of time of how you've got to learn it. And a lot of the enjoyment comes from how quickly you can learn these systems.
All right, so you've mentioned AAA game development, so I'm going to pounce on this. Your history, I guess to some people might be surprising. You mentioned Codemasters. I think you used to work at Rare before.
I used to work at Vault Europe, which is a subsidiary
So that was for Viva Pinata?
Yeah, Viva Pinata 2, I believe.
Right.
That was a very long time ago now.
Yeah, so, okay, let's start there. What changes when you go from AAA to a one-person indie team? Like, I imagine freedom happens, and you get to sort of express yourself as you wish, but what's that process genuinely like?
To be honest, the biggest change is there's less meetings and less useless meetings as well. Sometimes it's a bit like a dinner table at a Game of Thrones episode. I think everyone's trying to make a career out of it, obviously, so they want to get to the next level. So everyone's trying to add their different element to the game, and you end up just like telling people how to suck eggs through straws. It's just becomes this frustrating process where everyone has to be made sure they're in the clear, but then also everybody has to be made sure they're the one that made sure everybody else is in the clear.
You know, it's important.
Yeah, so they get the cookie at the end of the day.
You don't want to be makes to pie sell. You want to be Cersei, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Really
make the moves.
Yeah.
What did you actually work on at Codemasters? Because I guess that seems the most familiar to Jalopy. It really isn't, though, is it? Like, Jalopy's a bit out there in comparison. It's got a car in it.
Yeah.
That's a comparison.
I think you can see where Jalopy comes from if you understand. I used to work on the Formula One games for a fair few years. And you get to a point when you're working on these games where you're doing essentially the same game every year, and the turnover's so quick on them that you can't really mess with a lot. You've got to have the situation where there's always a track, there's always a car, and there's always a game loop that's established. And then you start thinking in your own head when you're working on it, because you're doing the same thing year in, year out. Well, what would I do differently? What do I take out of this? Where's my enjoyment?
I'd get a really battered old car and make people put the engine in it.
Well, why don't I spite the fastest cars in the world? They're rubbish anyway.
And I guess it also must be a big leap going from, hitting that annual deadline or whatever it is with working at Codemasters to early access, where you can say it's going to be finished early next year, we think, and that's actually okay. Like, people, to an extent, will run with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of goodwill in, especially PC community and early access. I do think that goodwill has a limit, though. There's only so much you can take. You see it with some other early access titles where the sort of communications died off. They've spent 6 months with their last update, and it was a bug fix. And you lose that goodwill. And then, rightfully so, people are like, well, where's my money gone? Where's the development gone to this? So you do... It's like a strange balance. You've got to make sure you've got an update big enough to sort of drive press to keep the game aware, because early access is all about keeping press awareness, keeping that flow. But at the same time, you've got to keep the updates frequent enough that people have got something to go back to.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Does it mean that you end up wearing loads of hats, though? Because you're not just the game developer. You're not just the designer. You've also got to be the person that speaks to the community directly. You have to be seen to be doing that a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm happy to give up hats wherever I can. That's a lot like what the early access process is about, taking suggestions from people who play and enjoy the game and know it to an extent better than I do from the outside. So stuff like music, Jeremy Walmsley does the music for the game. Mm-hmm. I just go to him, I was like, I've got no musical inclination, I can't sing, I can't do any of that.
Just
take this game and do what you think's best with it. I think it's just part of trust. Mm-hmm. Trust people you work with when you're making a game. Why not trust the consumer who play your game and have adopted it early to understand, yeah, they probably do have the best insight into what to do next.
Well, that is an excellent segue to maybe open up to some audience questions, considering we're talking about how it's the community that matters, it's their feedback that's important. So I don't know exactly where the mic's going to be, except this man's holding it. So I imagine it's going to be in this sort of corridor. If anyone would like to step up and ask some questions, that'd be nice.
Ooh,
there's a spotlight, which is exciting. Don't be nervous. Anyone? Okay, shall I carry on asking some questions and then we'll go back to that? Once one person starts, everyone will. So you said that like you're happy to sort of speak to your music guy and hand off bits and pieces when you can, but still fundamentally you're a game designer and you're also now having to deal with like community management, press releases. Does that stuff ever feel like it gets in the way?
Well, I don't actually deal with a lot of that stuff because Excalibur picked me up quite early, the publisher, and they're really good at handling all that stuff. They helped do the video we seen earlier as well. That was edited by Chris, who sat over there.
Hello, Chris.
Good man, he is. Yeah, so they help out a lot with that stuff. So it just allows me to just focus on building the game and just creating the assets and updating the code.
Sure. I feel like I've made too much of a thing of people asking questions now because no one stood up. Okay, sorry. Well, we'll carry on here, and hopefully someone will be brave enough. So what's next for Jalopy? What are you currently working on? What's like the list?
So we got. I tried to get an update out per country that we're doing. So the next country is the Yugoslavia update, which you can see on the screen. After that, that'll add a load of new features and that I'm not quite going into yet. After that, there'll be 2 more major updates to get the game to alpha, which will then be Bulgaria and then Turkey. And then after that, we'll head towards hitting beta, which is all the bug fix. Alpha's content complete. That's what alpha means as well. People say, oh, the game's alpha and it's early access. No.
How much of that stuff is actually planned out well in advance? Because by the sounds of it, you're also, during these big updates, reacting to what the community is saying on a more immediate basis.
Yeah.
How much you know that you need to do and how much sort of comes more organically?
I know the framework of the game and what you'll eventually be able to do in the game, but certain stuff like the upgrade system, a lot of people suggest different upgrades that I'll then think, yeah, that's a good idea, and I'll add that. The community want a trailer in the back of the car at the minute, so you can drag that along with you, more storage
Another thing
space.
to have to open up and move things around in.
More junk, throw your junk in there.
Is that happening then? Do you?
Dropping me in it here,
well,
aren't
I mean, you said the community wants it.
Yeah.
So
not in Yugoslavia, but eventually.
Maybe. Oh, cool. And is there anything else that sort of jumped out as like a community suggestion that's just like, oh man, that's actually a really, we need this in here now?
There's a tool rack coming into your car,
right.
which it has the most important components in the trunk of your car, so you always have them. That doesn't take up any space, that's coming. And also a headlight upgrade, because the game gets quite dark at night, so they have better visibility if they upgrade that.
There's something fantastic about the PC crowd anyway, obviously, is fantastic, and as you said, often very willing to sort of see how early access goes and understand that it's a work in progress. But your community in particular gets excited about tool racks. That's pretty wonderful. I can't think of many other examples where that's like the killer feature.
Yeah, one guy's really excited to get different types of fuel as well. So you'll have 2 fuel pumps like Super and Ultra, and it's like, somebody's really excited about that sort of aspect of it. It's
amazing that you've managed to find that audience, though. Like that must be another thing that's sort of changed over the last few years for you. Like the idea of being able to focus on such specific things and see an audience that's tailored so specifically to a game like Jalopy react to it.
I think that's the trick to indie development, though. You've got to find your oddball ideas and your niches, and I think Jalopy's slotted quite nicely into a comfortable niche. I don't know how you repeat that. I don't know.
Do you think this is your career now? Do you reckon you found your sort of place in the indie world, or would you ever go back to like a bigger company if the right project came up?
I'd never say never. It depends what kind of opportunities you are. I mean,
just less meetings. That'd have to be in the contract.
I mean, working on your own in your pants, it takes its toll mentally. You do forget to shave and stuff. But.
All right, excellent. There is a question over here, so I'm going to pass on.
Hi, I took the long walk from over there. Can you give us an insight into the decision-making process and funding process when deciding to go it alone?
Oh, okay, for me, it was more of the decision to go alone from a company was more of the stress of getting fed up of working on the same game as before, because I did originally try to go to different companies to work on different games, but in the end it was more of a rage quit. I just sort of said, I've had enough of this. I'm not getting any younger. I'm going to give it a go on my own, do the indie thing, get that out of my system. If it doesn't go well, then it doesn't go well. The funding process was it started off with savings first of all, and then once they started to drain like a little bit, I got a interest off publishers, and then you go to meetings with publishers, and you just find the one that suits you right now. I mean, there's still the stigma in indie development, like saying you need to do everything yourself, have to be self-owned, you have to do the game has to be published by yourself. But publishers now, they've adapted, they've changed, they understand exactly what you need, they understand the sphere to market it. I know nothing about marketing, and they handle that perfectly.
RPG.
Yeah, RPG, yeah. That's it always reminds me of Forrest Gump when he gets the email after investing in Apple. He gets the letter. He's like, somebody organised a fruit company for me and said I never had to worry about money again. I guess that's quite nice. So that's sort of the feeling you get when a publisher is marketing your game and doing all those sort of aspects. You're like, well, yeah, they know when to put it on sale. They know when to put it to the press. I can just tinker away in my little game now.
It sounds like the indie dream is actually real then. Like you were working on some big games, but eventually getting a little frustrated with not being able to focus on what you wanted. And you took the leap, and there's a community. People come up to watch you talk about your game at EGX. There's people that want tool racks in your game.
Yeah.
It works, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's from what it was 5 years ago to what it is now, it's changed a lot. Used to be boom or bust, didn't it? It used to be sell 1 million copies or nothing at all. Now it's sort of stabilised. People talk about the indie apocalypse, whatever it is, daft word, and it's just like it's just a sustainable living now. It's stabilised. You make the right decisions. You treat it like a business. Mm-hmm. You make a half decent game, and you can survive quite easily.
It does seem over those last few years, as you said, things have changed. It has sort of stabilised. It's not necessarily you make it and then suddenly you're an indie millionaire, although there are a few more examples. It also seems more difficult to get your game in front of people in the first place. Like, I remember a time when being on the front page of Steam was massive. Like, if you got on the front page of Steam, that meant something for weeks.
Yeah.
Now it's like that page changes every single day, and it's almost impossible to keep with. How do you make sure that Jalopy doesn't get, or how did you make sure that Jalopy didn't get lost during that initial push?
Well, when I initially started developing Jalopy, the first push to marketing I did was just document everything I did. Set up tumblers, TIG source, all these sort of devlogs, because that's the only way I know to sort of market as a developer is to market to other developers about what I'm working on. Mm-hmm. And eventually people just pick up on what you're working on, they give you feedback, create a relationship, a communication, a dialogue with them, and that sort of just spreads. Like there's still a natural growth to it, there is still that aspect. But yeah, I mean, what I'll say about indie development is it's I mean, call it indie sounds odd now, the way how we handle it, but it feels more sustainable, more stable than working in a AAA or AA company now, because every week you see on GamesIndustry.biz, so-and-so let go their staff this after project's done. And that's the reality, that's what it is. It's a cold-hearted company, don't really care about you. They want the game done off you. What are the developers doing now? Oh, nothing. Oh, get rid of them then. Sack them off. And still loads of issues with like 0-hour contracts and that for developers. So I think it's important to not overstate how like risky it is to go into this.
But for any potential game developers in the audience, there isn't a secret to that first day then, like making sure that you get your moment in the spotlight and you use it correctly. There isn't like a secret ingredient.
I think it's the same secret with any business. It's you give yourself a long enough rope to run with before you hang yourself, and then you just persistence, you keep doing it day in, day out. Eventually something bites. I mean, I could give you an example of something, but these change every so many months. Certain games they do something with Twitch, like they do something clever with Twitch. Everybody else tries to do that, but that's already been reported on.
Yep.
It's not news anymore. Only certain type of people have like the mind to set that up. I don't have a mind like that. I can't think of clever, quirky ways to market my game.
RPG, just keep saying that.
Yeah, Jalopy, Jalopy, buy it now. Yeah.
So there isn't like a standout moment for you that's when Jalopy sort of got noticed. It wasn't like a nerd cubed playthrough or like a particular site that covered it in a certain way.
No,
gradual.
I don't think any of the big YouTubers actually picked it up yet, purely because it's so in early access, so hard now. Like, it just seems to be like it was a consistent dialogue. People got involved and they're like, okay, I like this, I'll support you now. We'll see what happens in 6 months.
From my perspective, it is a very different kind of game though. Like that, I think that's probably what helps it stand out in that brief spotlight that you get.
Yeah. You can market any game though, you really can. I mean, some examples I wouldn't name any, but there's like you can market anything. If you know how to market, you know how to market. If you know how to develop, you know how to develop. I guess if you're just coming out of school and you want to become an indie developer, the one mistake schools always make is they focus on your weaknesses. Right. They try and get your grades up in different aspects because it looks good for them. But what they don't tell you about when you enter real life is you need to focus on your strengths. You need to focus on what you're strong at there because you enjoy doing it when you're working on your strengths.
Sure. Even if those strengths are making a game about a battered old car with tool racks in it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. I think we're going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for your time, Greg. Your game looks fantastic, and I really enjoyed that. So
Thank you very much, everyone.
Round of applause. Thank you. Cheers. I should probably tell you what the next session is in an hour's time, on the hour, but I'm not entirely sure that I've got it. So I'm just going to say, have a nice time, and maybe come back later on. There's more dev sessions throughout, and cheers.